Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. It's my 5-year business anniversary, March 29th to be exact. So the day before this airs was the date I officially, quote unquote, launched my business 5 years ago. And now if you have a business, then you know that like the quote, starting a business tends to be a lot more subtle than just like one day it's there when it wasn't the day before. So in reality, I'd been freelancing for quite a while, close to a year really, like completely, before I officially launched my business. But I count the day I launched it as March 29th because that's the day I launched my website and really made it a business versus just being a freelancer. So I call that my official business start date. So to celebrate 5 years of business, I want to share with you 5 of the biggest business lessons I've learned in these 5 years. So there's so many lessons and there's so much learning that comes with owning a business. If you own a business yourself, you know that. But these are the things that really stick out to me. So I was on a walk earlier this week and I was like, what would I want to share? Like, what do I think are the 5 biggest takeaways? I wanted to do 5 for 5 years. So I had to like limit myself a little bit here. And these are the ones I came up with, like lessons for me personally, things I didn't know, things that helped me that maybe I learned early on where things would have been different had I not learned that. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this fun episode. And I hope you learned something from these lessons too, and that you'll also think about like, what are the lessons you've learned so far in your business, however many years that's been. So let's dive into this fun episode. All right, so before I get into these lessons, I want to say 2 important things. First of all, I just want to say I am so grateful for my business. I feel that way all the time, and I felt that way really all of these 5 years, but I felt that way especially lately of just an extreme feeling of like gratitude for this business, so grateful this is what I get to do, proud of this business, seeing it as something like separate than me that I'm happy about and proud of, but also something that I created. And it's a really good feeling, that level of gratitude, especially with my recent course launch, a Booked Out Designer. That had me feeling gratitude even more than normal, if that's possible. And even just today, as I'm recording this, there were 2 people who launched website templates and tagged me in it with their M-Shop templates. And seeing those, there's just so many reasons I feel like to be grateful. And I feel that really strongly and think about that constantly. So that is like that feeling, I guess you could say, is intertwined throughout like all of these tips. And if you have a business yourself or whatever line of work you're in, I would encourage you to like practice gratitude towards your business, seeing it as something separate from yourself, but also something you created and something that you can love, something you can be proud of, something you can have respect for and care for and want to nurture, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's how I feel about my business. I'm so grateful for it. And another thing I wanted to point out that I think is just so cool. So this is episode 111 of my podcast. And I know I'm not unique in this, so if I sound like I think this is so unique, just know I know it's not. But I love the number 1111. Literally since I was like a teenager, like 13 or so, I've been making the same wish every time I see 1111 since then. I see it most days, like on a clock at some point or on something counting down, and I'll like notice it. And I've just always loved that number. I've used it in other areas of my life as well. Like my business address has 111 in it. So things like that. But I thought it was cool that it just so happens that like the way it timed itself is that this episode is episode 111. I just thought that was really cool, considering how much I love that number and love the whole 1111 making a wish thing. Okay, so those are the 2 things I wanted to share. Now let's dive into these lessons. So these are in no particular order, really. Really just kind of the order I thought of them and kind of trying to vary things up. And these cover a wide variety of things. There's lessons I recently learned, lessons I learned early on, all different points. And these are lessons that I want you to also learn, which is why I want to share them on the podcast. So first one, put on blinders. And so this goes two ways. I want to talk about the two ways that I recommend putting on blinders in your business. The first is with competitors. So if you spend all your time in your business just watching what your competitors or people who you think of as competitors do and don't do, you will stay stuck and on a hamster wheel really of like comparison and feeling behind, feeling ahead, feeling like you're not doing good enough. Oh, I should have thought of that first. Those kinds of feelings if you just watch competitors. When in reality, even though they might be a competitor on paper, you both have different goals. You both have completely different businesses that are at completely different points. So it really doesn't matter what they're doing. And an interesting thing here, I'm actually friends with quite a few of my competitors, which is so awesome. And I love that. And I love that we can be both. And I honestly kind of hate the word competitor, but I'm using it here because that's the truest thing. Like it kind of sounds like a bad word, but I just mean people that like you are in the same industry as and selling to the same group of people. You maybe sell the same products or work with the same types of clients. So that's what makes you competitors, but they can also be friends. And that does mean that I cheer them on and see what they're doing, but I intentionally do not look at these people's products. I don't get on their email list, and I don't do things that would be distracting from my mission and goals in my business, which are inevitably different than theirs. Like like I said, we're all completely different, unique businesses. And so that's what putting on blinders means to me. And I haven't always been good at that. So that's why I say this is a lesson. I would say I've been using the whole blinder mentality for quite a few years now, but that is not something that I've always been good at. I've been at points in my business where I'm like looking at what other people are doing and feeling behind and feeling like I'm not doing good enough. And then it's like, you have to remember everyone has different goals. Everyone's been in business different amount of times, and my goals might not be their goals and vice versa. And I already know actually that I have very different business goals than a lot of these friends who are also competitors. So that's what putting on blinders means to me from that perspective. And then on another perspective of blinders, then I would call this blinders as well, but don't have shiny object syndrome because you will literally just stay stuck. So you can't go chasing one thing after another constantly and expect to find success that way. And shiny objects are everywhere, especially in the realm of business education content like this podcast that you are listening to now and that hopefully you really enjoy. But I could do an episode on something and you like totally resonate with the episode. You're like, that's a great idea. I love that. That's so cool. I hadn't thought of that before. But that does not mean you need to do it right now. Someone could tell you about a new social media to check out, a new job you should hire for in your company, a new service or product you should offer, whatever it is. And you don't have to do it, and you especially don't have to do it right now. So be careful on chasing shiny objects and know where you're headed, which is something I'm going to talk about next. But to define, like, I was thinking about this when I said shiny objects, and I was like, putting my notes together here, like what even is a shiny object? To me, it's something that sounds like a good idea. It might actually be a great idea, but isn't in my current plan, and that I don't have the time, the energy, the capacity for, basically where something else is going to have to fall to the back burner because of this new thing. So oftentimes it's things that create FOMO, the feeling of being behind, but also might not actually be necessary for your goals. So that's how I think of a shiny object. And trying to think of a great example. For some people, things like Clubhouse might be a shiny object. I have not felt a desire yet to use Clubhouse, but I would say if I did, that would fall into that category for me because it's not aligned with my business goals right now, and I don't need to be on it. And so therefore it's not a good use of my time. But that might not be true for you. So I don't like to talk bad about Clubhouse because I don't mean that to be negative about that platform, in its entirety or anything like that. That's more of just an example from my own business. So you have to figure out what that is for yours, but just be aware of that. Be aware when you feel that draw to something that in reality, it's hey, maybe that's not the right thing for me right now. I'm feeling this pull because a competitor's doing it or because someone who I really trust who's a mentor is doing it, whatever that is, and stay in your lane and stay focused. Okay. So that's my first big lesson is putting on blinders. And again, all of these lessons, I don't know that I said this in the intro, but these are all things that I feel like really have contributed to me taking my business to where it is today, which is at multiple 6 figures a year, and something I'm really excited about. Like, I just truly love what I do. So anyway, that's something I think has contributed to getting me there. So second thing, this actually really kind of ties back to the first one. I actually was already kind of teasing it there. And the second lesson is to have a forward vision always and to know where you are headed. And as I wrote that, I was like, that sounds so basic, but basics do matter, and basics are lessons that we have to learn in our business. And it might be something where you're like, yeah, I actually do know that, but like, are you doing it? Like, do you really have a vision for your business? Do you know where you're headed? And I like to include this one here because I think forward vision is literally how I built my business to where it is today. I think this is actually one of the biggest things, and it's so subtle. It's something that happens every single day. It's not like a one-time, one and done thing, like, hiring a Facebook ads company or something like that. It's something you do constantly, and it really matters. So for me, this comes I would say fairly easy over other aspects of my business that might feel more challenging because I'm really future focused. Oh my gosh, that was a tongue twister there. I'm very future focused as a person. I'm naturally like a daydreamer, and I love thinking about my vision for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on, both for my personal life and for my business. And interesting thing to point out there, I say those things separately, but when you're a business owner, those two things connect a lot. So like your vision for your personal life should also affect your vision for your business, because those goals need to be aligned because you're the owner of the business. So knowing where you're headed matters. And to go back to the first point here about blinders, if you know where you're headed, then it doesn't matter what your competitors are doing because you have a plan for your business and that's what you're working on executing. So for example, with my own business, I've known for like 2 years, 3 years maybe, if we're being generous, that I've wanted to create a course, multiple courses, in addition to my website templates. And that has been on my horizon. It has been on my goals. It has been on my vision for where my business is headed. And my first course for designers launched recently, and it was a huge success. And I'm so grateful I did it. Grateful that that has happened now, but that's not everyone's goal. And so many designers, possibly even most designers, want to design stuff. So that might not be where they want to head, but that's what I really enjoy because I love education. And so that's where I think my desire for courses and content of that nature comes out. So just knowing what you're working towards and that being what you want versus it being what you see other people doing and thinking oh, that looks like that could be a good idea, but you're not sure if you'd like it. You have to do stuff that makes sense for your life and business goals and your own personal interest. So another thing here I want to add to, in addition to so the first one is knowing your vision, knowing where you're headed, but also knowing that you always know what's best for your business. So trust your instincts. Advice from other people is beautiful and helpful, and you should seek it out all the time, I think. If you have someone wise who can be a business mentor to you, or a friend you can ask about stuff, definitely do that by all means. But also learning to trust yourself is huge as a business owner because you make quote unquote big decisions every day practically, and oftentimes they're decisions you're making on your own solo, and you need to be able to trust yourself and know your vision, which is going to help you be more trusting of your own decisions. And I just think that really will help you propel your business forward and not waste time in the mud, I guess is the best way to say that. Kind of stuck being I don't know what to do next. So trusting your own instincts, even above advice you might be given. I've been given so much random advice over the years from people who are mentors that I ended up not doing their advice, and it ended up being the better thing for me. Now, I've also had mentors tell me great advice that was the right thing, but ultimately, within all that, you have to be able to trust your own instincts. Another thing I want to add here on episode 38 of this podcast, I talk about my 27th birthday. I think that episode literally aired on my birthday, which is fun. And it was called Letters to My Future Self, or I think it was called Turning 27 and Letters to My Future Self. But I talk in that episode about a practice I do every year on my birthday. I learned it from the life coach school. And that exercise and the whole episode really, I would say, is a great starting point if you're thinking, I don't really know where to even start with creating a vision for myself. Go back and listen to that episode. I talk about this method of writing a letter to yourself from your past self and then to your past self from your future self. There's all kinds of stuff there. It's kind of complicated to explain on this episode, but it's really cool and really helpful. So go listen to that one. It's episode 38. And yeah, so that's my second Big lesson that I believe will literally change your business. Have a forward vision, know where you're headed, write it down every day if that helps you. Keep it in the back of your mind. Evaluate decisions in your business based on those goals. This year, actually, just add another little tangent here. I have way more focused goals than I would say any other year in business so far. And I say more focused because they're simpler and more defined, maybe even might be a better way to put it. And just kind of like, this is what needs to happen. And that's because I'm pregnant and due in August. And it's like, I'm going to take a maternity leave, which does cut like some of my business year out. It makes me be more like every yes is a no to something else. And I have these goals. I got to stick to it. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm executing this year. Someone else whose year is completely different than mine, who's a competitor, might be executing something completely different. And that's okay. So anyway, that's something I've kind of been thinking about lately. So let's move on to lesson number 3. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Okay, so this lesson is that you've got to love serving your customers to build a successful business, and basically that people can never just become a number to you, and you can't cut corners on the customer service, the client service you're offering as you scale. So here's what I mean by all that. I see it all too often where this can happen as your business grows. It can be a temptation, honestly, because the reality is when you aren't just working one-on-one with clients, which, many businesses will get to that point, you do have a lot of customers and you don't know everyone's name. You don't necessarily see every sale that comes through, and you might have like less one-to-one touch points with the people who are paying you, is the reality of it. And that can lead to a business where maybe in your mindset, you're just focused on money, just one more person. And I think, again, at the least, that can be a temptation or something that maybe even we migrate towards without realizing it's happening until after it's already happened. And so something I've strived for over the years, like knowing that can be a thing as I am having less touch points with customers. Something I've been striving for is being very customer focused, even as things grow, and to kind of explain like what I mean by that and what that's looked like in my business with a few examples. At this point, what that looks like, a few things that come to mind is celebrating every launch that I'm tagged in on Instagram with a customer to cheer them on and get involved in their excitement. So a lot of my template customers, when they do release their website, they're going to do a cool post about it and share on Instagram because they're excited. And I want to celebrate with that. I want to actually like look at their site instead of just saying like, cool, congrats. and make an effort to like be involved, congratulate them, thank them, that sort of stuff. So that's one way that it just actively looks in my day to day. And I think I already said this earlier, but like literally we just had 2 people launch where this was the case where I'm like looking at it, responding, all of that. Okay, another one, offering customer support and really timely response times, truly helpful, not just the kind of support where you're like, here's a link, hope that helps, peace out. We want to like be helpful, be along in the journey with customers. Literally just yesterday, I got an email from a new customer saying how happy she was with the response times of the M-Shop team and felt like, oh my gosh, this has been so much faster than other designers I've reached out to, and that she had a trust that she was in great hands because of like how helpful the responses were and how fast, which is like, that's literally what I want to hear. And that's something where like I have help in order to execute that at this point. At one point, I was able to do customer support alone. I did that for years, really. And it was fine. But now it's at a point where there are enough customers to serve where I have to get help to maintain that same standard. So see, that's actually even a great example right there of like, I could be like, well, there's too many customers now, I just got to quit doing this the way I was doing it before. But instead, it's like, how can we expand to make room for these customers and keep that same level? Another thing that we do that I'm really proud of, and because gifting is like my love language, this makes so much sense to me that this is something like I would have strived for. But we gift all US M-Shop customers with a physical gift in the mail after they purchase a template. And we still do this. Even many customers down the road. And it's funny because early in my business, I started doing this and it was just like a handwritten note and a sticker is what people got. Some of you guys listening have literally received that gift from me. And I was writing them all myself. I would do it like late at night watching TV, and I had a spreadsheet where I was like trying to make sure I didn't skip people. I often like accidentally sent stuff to people twice because they would come back and buy another template, and then I didn't have a good system for like making sure like I didn't already send them one. Anyway, it got confusing, and it got to the point where like I was starting to let that fall behind because it was like, as more customers come in, it's harder to like maintain and make time for and all that. So you got to prioritize it if it's a priority. And I really love that we do this. It adds a personal touch, I think, that I think personally matters. Like when I buy something digital and receive something in the mail, I think it's like shocking, honestly. And so I hope that like, and we do get the feedback from customers that like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. I love this product that you mailed. I'm actually not going to share what everyone gets on here because I like to keep that a surprise for customers. But they get a little like goodie envelope with some stuff in it. So anyway, that's something I really love getting to do. And again, just like trying to connect, making that effort to connect on like a more one-to-one level. Another way this looks in my business is for my booked out designer course launch that just happened for the beta launch, which last week you guys heard an episode of me talking about why I did a beta launch, all the pros and cons. So definitely listen to that one if you skipped this episode. But that course sold out within like an hour. I did limit the spots on it for the beta launch because I wanted to actually make an effort to know the designers in it and help them on a more one-to-one level, which I knew if I did not limit the numbers, I would not be able to do that. And for this first small group, I really wanted to be able to like talk to them, get their input, hear their problems, and make sure I'm making content that's actually what they want versus me thinking it's what they want. And I wanted to have them to have the best experience possible. So like limiting the numbers on that was a way that I did that. Another way that I try to put customers first, I regularly pray for our customers in a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different things. I've talked about this multiple times on the podcast, but if you're curious, I mean, just share like a few of the things I end up praying for. I pray for my customers' businesses to succeed, and that's something like so fun to me about what I get to do. I know many of you are in the same boat of like you have a business that helps other people's businesses succeed, which is really cool. And like even thinking about this particular episode, talking about my 5 years in business, I launched my business 5 years ago, and I call that launch date, like the start day of my business, as the day I launched my website. Like it's such a pivotal moment in a business. And oftentimes we define that day as the start of our business. And so I love that like I get to play even just a small role in that for people. And I really want their businesses to succeed in like every aspect of serving more people, making more money, earning a living for their family, providing jobs, all of it. So that's something I pray for. And I also pray they'll find favor and ease with the template. Because let's be real, even with a platform that's like easier to use, like Show It, there is still a learning curve. And for some people, that learning curve is more difficult than others. And so just praying that like they can get through the learning curve, that the like contents I'm giving them to help with that will resonate, and they'll be able to like launch their sites quickly. And then with my new course students, it's looks similar. Like I've been praying that they'll have success in their businesses, build incredible businesses, be able to book more clients, and also that the course content will resonate with them and like things will strike them like the right things, and that they'll be able to like make the time to take action on it. So anyway, and I pray that I can be a good coach. That's another big one lately, because this is all like new to me, doing coaching calls and stuff. And it's really fun and I've loved it so much, but I also am like, I want to pray for wisdom, that I am giving good advice and being thoughtful in my responses and knowing it carries weight, and not taking the role lightly, basically. So anyway, the point in all of this though is that I think caring for customers is so important as you grow your business, not letting customer support or the customer experience become an afterthought because you've scaled, because there's too many people, because it's like you don't need to do that anymore because you're making enough money, those sorts of thoughts. Again, they're tempting. When we talk about like systems and scaling, a lot of that stuff can be like all over that, but you can do the systems, you can do the scaling and still put customer experience and like the customers as the focus of the business, basically. So that's something that like I've had to intentionally focus energy on. And I think it's played a huge role in getting my business to where it is today. So, and I don't plan to ever change that. If anything, I want to like keep making customer support even better as we scale. So that's the third one. You can't cut corners on customer experience and service. All right, let's move on to my fourth lesson from 5 years in business. So this one I have a lot less to say about, but is like just as important as everything else I've said. So fourth one is content creation will propel your growth. So there have been so many growth spurts over the years for my business, which is normal. Like businesses have ebb and flows of like major moments that propel you forward. But a notable one for me was when I started creating content. And yes, with this podcast, but also before this podcast with blogging. And even like before that and since then with like actually using social media to create content, since all of that with email marketing, like all of those things have really helped propel growth. And so when you're showing up and you're saying something that's helpful, that educates, inspires, and entertains people, it will help you grow your business. And I think that's like literally just a fact. So that's why I want to include this here. So if you're someone who's like, you're feeling like I'm struggling to book clients, I'm struggling to make sales on my products, consider, are you creating content any sort of way? Or are you just like only talking about your products and services? Or maybe you're not even talking about that stuff. You're not posting at all. You're not doing any sort of marketing because you have so much on your plate with client work. I don't know what the situation is for you individually. You probably know where you fall after hearing me just list out those options. But the point I want to make here is you should be creating content. It will help you propel your business. And again, that can look like a variety of ways. And I would encourage you to start small. If you're someone right now who you're like, I've not posted on social media in 1,000 years and I don't blog or anything like that, like start with like some Instagram post and showing up on stories. Like it doesn't have to be a huge leap from like zero to like a YouTube show. Like it can be a lot more subtle than that. So look for ways that you can start small. Social media, email marketing, podcasting, blogging, YouTube, Clubhouse rooms, like all of those are great ways that you can create content. So this is a really short one, but I include it because when I was thinking about, okay, like what has been keys for me, lessons for me in the last 5 years of growing my business, like this is one that's so huge and really sticks out. And I think it's like people know this, but oftentimes don't do it. Like I think we can all agree that content creation is important, but then it can be hard to like take action on. So that is my fourth one. Okay, and now we are on to the last lesson. Okay, I'm really excited about this one. So lesson number 5, the final one for this episode, you can't do it alone and really scale your business. So at one point early on in my business, I might have even talked about on this podcast multiple times, I can't remember, but I thought early on that I didn't want a team ever. I think I visualized having a team as having other people work with me in the same room all day, like that you need to have an office. I saw it as creating more work for me and creating less freedom, like because you're having to like help and answer to other people. So I had a lot of negative mindset around a team. I'm also very independent as a person and like being alone. Like I'm someone who's very happy working from home and like not seeing people all day. Generally speaking, I would get tired of that overall, but like I'm okay like being alone when I'm working. So anyway, I think because of all of that, I thought I didn't want a team. And in reality, that's not what having a team looks like, first of all. And so I'm so glad I dropped that mindset. And now going back to like my tip number 2 here about having a forward vision, as I'm preparing to become a mother, as I'm pregnant, I'm like, I have got to have help to literally be a business owner at the like scope of work my business is at now, and to also be a mother who does some like stay-at-home mom stuff. I know I'm going to end up getting childcare help, but like probably not all the time. So that will mean working less in my business. So anyway, and even before that, like even right now in all these 5 years, I've needed help. So I think building a team is everything. And some things that like might come up for you as I say all that. Do you need to hire in your first year of business? I would say probably not. I certainly did not hire in my first year of business. Do you need to hire when you have no idea what anyone else would help you with because you don't really have work yet for yourself? I would also say probably not. I think we hear people a lot of times talk about hiring and be like, you have to hire right now. But it's like a lot of times when your business is newer, you actually don't have enough work yet for 2 people, and that's okay. Another one, do you need to hire when you can't pay yourself yet? Probably not. Like if you can't pay yourself, maybe it's not time to try to also pay someone else. So anyway, there's a point though when as you scale, you'll feel the need to hire, and you should absolutely listen to that need. It'll change your business for the good. So when I get asked the question, how do you do it all? And that was actually a question we saw quite a few times on the end of year survey from 2020 that I sent out. Variations of that question. The answer is I don't do it all. And it's funny, even notice I said we saw in the survey. That's because I have help. And I actually had a team member named Stacy who helped me analyze that survey and made like a spreadsheet with all the data of it so we could really like figure out trends and grab all the questions from it and all of that kind of stuff. So here's my tip here. If you want to be limited by your own amount of time you can work in any given week, then sure, do it alone forever. But if you want to be able to have the manpower in your business to do more without you working like 100 hours a week, then you will eventually need a team. And at some point, again, not all of you listening right now need to hire. If you need to hire though, you probably know who you are as you listen to this, because a lot of what I've said so far has probably resonated with you. But within my business, I waited a while to hire, and that was like against the advice I heard a lot of times of people saying like, you need to hire immediately, like team from day one. And if you feel like you need to hire, you probably already like missed the time you were supposed to, things like that. Like I think I started hiring at the exact right moment for me because again, trusting your instinct. But if you need to hire, you probably know just listening to this. Like I think that's the truth, is that you know your business, so you know. But within my business right now, I don't have like a giant team or anything like that. And I still don't think that's where I want to head. But I do have 2 people who are like in the business with me day in and day out. And then I have about 6 contractors, and you could say more than that even, but who I work with very regularly. And some of those people are every month. Like I have a bookkeeper who's working with me every month, Facebook ads team, my podcast editor. Hello, Natalie. She's going to be the one editing this. But those are people who are like outside of that regular team who I am working with like consistently. Like this is always going to be something every month. And then I have others that are more project based. And then I have, the 2 additional people who are really there day in and day out. But point is I have help, and I couldn't have built my business to where it is today without a team or without, like, I guess you could have, but then I would have done a lot less things, and I also probably would be working nonstop, which is not what my life is like. I work 40 hours a week or less, and more often than not, it's less than that. And that's because I have help. So I could probably do that same thing of what I just said of working around 40 hours a week, but like maybe not have this podcast, maybe not do email marketing, probably not run Facebook ads, maybe not have a course in addition to templates. Like you just can't do it all alone. So that's just a really big tip here. And I think like, again, going back to like, I just said this, but like, I don't think I could have built my business to where it is today without help from other people. I'm so grateful for all the people who've helped in my business over the years. So that's a big tip here, is that if you want to scale your business, you cannot do it completely alone. And when I say scale, I'm talking about like typically past like $100,000 a year point, I would say is where it gets really tough to go past that, to go to multiple six figures without having help. That's at least what I've seen in other people's businesses, and I felt that in my own as well. Like you could get to that point without a team, but then getting much farther past that, getting to like 500,000 and working towards 1 million, like that's certainly not going to be a solo thing. So I want to quickly recap those lessons. So the first one we talked about was putting on your blinders, both with competition and with shiny object syndrome. Second thing was have a forward vision and know where you are headed in your business, know what your goals are. Third one was that you have to be customer service focused, customers at the center of your business, and you can't cut corners there as you scale. Fourth one, content creation will propel your growth. And the last one was you can't do it alone and really scale your business to bigger proportions. So that is it. Those are the 5 lessons for this episode. And I know I have a lot more lessons than that I've learned over 5 years, as I'm sure you do too in your business. And like for me, it's like, that's why I have this podcast. So I can talk about all the other lessons at other times in other episodes. But I chose those 5 because those like came into my mind when I asked myself this question of like, what are the things I've learned? These were the things that felt like the most in the forefront. And again, I want to say, I said this earlier, I'm so grateful for my business, but I also want to add that I'm so grateful for each of you who listens to this podcast. So many of you have been here since day one or like gone all the way back to day one and have listened to every episode, even if that's not you. I'm so appreciative of you all and appreciative of all you M-Shop customers, my one-on-one clients, my new booked out designer students, of course. You guys are all amazing. And I just seriously am so grateful and obviously could not do this without you. So thank you. And thank you for listening to the end and celebrating this 5-year business anniversary with me. And I want to say too, something like I love doing is this type of thing of thinking about, okay, what have I learned in X amount of years in business? Even if you don't have a podcast, even going back to what we were saying with content creation, like you might have thought through listening to this episode of different things you've learned in your 1 year in business, 5 years, 10 years, however long you've been in business. I'd encourage you to create some content around that for yourself. And if you don't publish it anywhere, even just for your own time, consider like, okay, maybe in a journal, like what are things I've learned? What have been my biggest takeaways? And if you do want to share it somewhere like I am on this podcast, or maybe it's, an Instagram caption for you, maybe it's an Instagram live, maybe it is a blog post, whatever. But I'd encourage you to consider this question of like, what have you learned, however many years you've been in business, and then maybe create some content around it. Okay, so that was just a little random tip I thought of just now. Okay, so I'll be back next week with another episode. Again, thank you for listening and thank you for celebrating 5 years of business with me. Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on M-Shop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.